So to quickly highlight the agenda for today's session, we will be starting with Aditya Soma, who will be throwing some light onto and giving us an insightful perspective on the concept of cities as classrooms. Post which we will move on to a segment with Rosa. She will be talking about sustainable urbanization and UN Habitat's work, and of course, the role of youth and how youth can be the stewards of sustainable urbanization. After this, we will open the virtual floor for a Q&A and a discussion segment, which is open to everyone present here today. And last but not the least, we have the launch of an interesting initiative, the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, where Prakriti will be throwing light on the details and specifics of the initiative. So diving right into the agenda, we first have with us Aditya Soma, and over to you, Aditya.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, Aditya.
Right. So, Aparna, you put some pressure on me by saying I'll be sharing a very insightful perspective. So, I'd like to start by sharing a disclaimer that it's just a perspective that comes out of a lot of thoughts that we've had over the years working on sustainable cities, and especially in terms of how do we engage schools in building sustainable cities. So I'll, I think lower the expectation from what Aparna has said and begin with that disclaimer that it's just some thoughts that we have, not all of which that we are able to work on at the same time. So we'd love it if more people join us in this endeavor. So there's two things that I want to broadly touch upon today. Firstly, it's about envisioning a class city instead of a classroom. So is it possible for us to look at the class and the city seamlessly together? The second one is about reimagining the school as a microcosm of a smart city. So I'll jump right in and begin by talking about the first part of what I was saying. If we can envision a class city instead of a classroom, can we turn the entire city into one immersive integrated learning space and expand the canvas for our learners? When we talk about this, what we are really talking about is how can we make the classroom boundless and seamless. The city and the classroom are really both learning spaces which have a deep influence on who we are. I think all of us would have experienced certain things about our cities that have shaped who we are and certain aspects of our personality. And our idea is how can we bridge these barriers so that we can learn and grow seamlessly in the city as a classroom. Over the years, I've realized that by navigating in our cities, with the various conversations that we have, sitting in the cafes of our cities, we learn so much about the history of the city. By getting lost and finding our way through the city with the various interactions that happen in the city, there's a lot that we learned in our city about the culture and the history. But these often happen passively and incidentally through various periods of our life. But when we are looking at the city as a classroom, what we are imagining is if these can actively become part of the learning process of the students. Can our students spend time in the bylanes of our cities, walking around, exploring and learning about the history? Can our students spend time negotiating in the bazaars of our cities, understanding trade and commerce, understanding how demand and supply work within the cities? That's what we are talking about in this idea of a boundless and a seamless classroom. So I actually, want all of you to reflect on, and in fact, probably share in the chat about one aspect of your own personality that has probably been shaped by the city you belong to. I'd love to see some responses in the chat here, actually. So you could probably mention the city that you belong to and one aspect of your personality that has been shaped by that city. Right. Another aspect of looking at this, the city more seamlessly as a classroom and removing these barriers and making it boundless, is that a lot of the disparities that exist today between what we learn in school or in the classroom and what we actually experience in the real world can be removed. We can teach and we can learn all we can about sustainability, about leading cleaner and more hygienic lives. But when we enter the city, the reality, of course, is very, very different. But instead, by making the classroom boundless, we can use these observations of what is not right about our city, the challenges that are there in implementing some of these things that we are teaching children, can be used as conversation points for teaching in the classroom. These powerful stories that educators can share, the guidance and the mentorship that educators can share by helping children understand these problems, and by helping them solve, is what we believe will make learning very real and experiential, and rather than just experiencifying of the learning. There was an interesting activity that was done in Berlin, where this gentleman, Cameron Stevens, actually gave students stickers, one of a smiling face and one of a frowning face, and asked them to go around and explore the neighborhood and stick a smiley face on anything that they found comfortable, good, positive, and a frowning face on something that they felt uncomfortable with. So in a way, they turned the children into investigators of the built environment of the city, but at the same time the students captured what they saw in on blogs and video logs, which were then debriefed in the classroom. So it's an interesting way of using what may not be at its best in our city to actually teach our children about what we need our cities to be. Another aspect of making the city a classroom is about giving a new lease of life to underutilized assets of a city. If you look around the city, there are various assets which serve a lot of purpose, but are still underutilized from a learning, from a classroom point of view. Now, these could be monuments, these could be planetariums, these could be playgrounds, these could be sewage treatment plants. Can we work on a model where students learn about the future of energy by studying energy efficient buildings in our cities? Can we learn about the problem of waste by actually visiting the sewage treatment plants that are there in the city, and not just visiting as a one time activity, but building a program around it that the school is engaged with over a longer period of time? There are certain examples that we see that are happening in some cities. I know of the Warsaw beach cleanup, where schools are right now engaged for an entire year. We've had experiences where certain schools have worked with us in creating sort of urban forests in their schools. And a couple of other examples that I see in terms of opportunities to use these underutilized assets. One is in Mumbai. When I see the mangroves in Mumbai, it can be a treasure trove for students to learn about biodiversity without going too far away. Similarly, in Hyderabad, there's so many monuments that are just lying around everywhere in different parts of the city, unattended, and in a very dilapidated state. Now, can these monuments, if they're adopted by schools, imagine adopting them, where students can learn not just history but certain aspects of archaeology and building more resilient cities through the work that they do around these monuments. So that's a few thoughts on expanding the canvas and making the city a part of the classroom. The second thing that I wanted to speak about stems from something that anyone who's attended a previous Worldview seminar would have heard about, which is about reimagining schools as primary engines of positive change. Schools, of course, have been engines of change forever in different ways, but here we're talking about it more specifically around becoming engines of change in the context of cities, to utilize the spaces that they occupy, the networks that they converge, and the influence that they hold. And in this context, how about looking at the school as a microcosm of a sustainable city, of a smart city, where we reimagine the school as energy generator, as waste recyclers, as urban farms, as healthcare centers, water harvesters, and more. There is a tremendous amount of space that schools hold, prime real estate in a lot of cities, and if these can be transformed into microcosms of smart cities with the kind of work that they do, there's tremendous potential for expanding the idea of a classroom. And not just that, these can be student-driven projects. Imagine students from the entrepreneurship cell within a school, or students who are studying economics and commerce in a school, actually building business cases around how waste can be collected at the school, and taking this to an organization that is dealing with a challenge of waste. Today, that is one of the biggest challenges a lot of the large organizations are facing. And we've got this opportunity to look at the school and the networks of the school as solutions to these problems. And in this context, I actually want to share a fairly startling statistic, which is something that we've researched and came across, that just about 2,000 schools in India, which converge about 2 million families, and these are, of course, the schools at the top of the pyramid, uh, control and influence over 63% of the wealth of our country. So if you can imagine the kind of power that rests in in these schools, probably by virtue of wealth, but if you look at schools in general, by by virtue of the kind of communities that schools converge, then the potential impact that we can generate by trying to drive behavioral change in our cities through the schools is quite unbelievable. So can we look at schools as the acupuncture points for driving change in the city? It's not uncommon today for us to see children influencing what fuel is used in the house, or how waste is treated in the house, or nagging their parents to probably buy an electric car. So when we have these uh, little activists all across our schools across the country, why not bring them in to drive this behavioral change in the communities? Because also what schools converge is a cross section of people from the city, right from your municipal administrators to the CEOs to the to the real estate owners, to people, the traders, the carpenters, the labor. All of their children are converged within the schools. And if we want to bring about a change in terms of how we behave in our cities, schools perhaps are great starting points for us to begin. And again, as I was referring to the forest project that we've been working on earlier, we've seen that change where we've had these students come into our campus to work on a project called the Will Forest 2025 project in our campus. But then these children went back and started building their own vertical farms within their schools, and working towards making their school more self-sufficient with their food. And then that went on to impact the homes as well. So, and the final idea and the final thought that I want to share in that in this particular perspective of schools as microcosms of smart cities is of forming neighborhood coalitions. This is something that we are very excited about, something that we are very passionate about working on, which is of creating these neighborhood coalitions with the school as the epicenter. Now, the idea is to bring in, right from NGOs to housing societies to organizations and businesses working in neighborhoods to address certain problems that exist in a neighborhood, and using the school and the ecosystem of the school to form the coalition to solve them. So this could be something as small as addressing the problem with stagnant water before the monsoon comes, to reduce vector-borne diseases, or it could be to figure out ways to increase the groundwater levels in a particular neighborhood in a granular level. These are ideas that have been explored, have been proven to work. But if we could look at the school as the epicenter for this change, I think there is a tremendous opportunity waiting for us to explore there. And finally, I quickly want to talk about like a few initiatives that we've been running here. Our approach to this idea of cities as classrooms and bringing about building more sustainable cities has been through building courses. We've have programs and courses under the FutureSake umbrella. Something that we are launching today is the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge. It's an entrepreneurship challenge. Then there's Seeds, which is a teacher training program, sustainable environments for education delivery in school. Then Recite is a program that we run with corporates, which is about reimagining corporate impact through education. Again, as I mentioned earlier, how can we take the challenges that they have and use the networks of schools to solve them? And FutureSake Labs is where we are exploring this idea of building these network coalitions. I'll apologize for rushing through my presentation slightly, but I did want to share a few different perspectives. And also at this point, I really want to thank this entire ecosystem of organizations and partners that have been supporting us in some of these initiatives that that we've been taking, and UN Habitat is case in point in terms of the how proactively that this, and with the enthusiasm with which they agreed to support the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, and lots of other organizations. There's Biome, there is I think Ubuntu, a variety of them who are keen to participate in this ecosystem. So yeah, I'd end by telling all of you to join us.
Thank you so much, Aditya. I personally still stick by what I started with, that it was certainly insightful. So this, reminds me of this Swedish proverb about education that says that a learner has three teachers. One is the actual instructor, the second is their fellow students, and the third is the learning space itself. And schools are not just building blocks with a very high impact on shaping the minds of young students and young generations, but they also are influential factors for the economic and social balance and the welfare of a city, community, neighborhoods. So on that note, we would move on to our next segment. We have with us Rosa. Hi, Rosa. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. How are you? Good afternoon.
Very well. Thank you. To give you all a quick introduction about Rosa, Rosa has over 20 years of professional experience with local governments and international organizations. And she has led global projects and advocacy initiatives promoting sustainable and resilient cities all over the world. She's taken part in the elaboration of the new urban agenda, leading the mobilization and the outreach initiatives within the Habitat 3 Secretariat. And before joining the United Nations back in 2011, she worked in the private sector and in the Barcelona City Council. And she was responsible for advocacy and outreach. So she's coordinated field projects across a variety of cities: Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, China, Kenya, and Europe. So a very warm welcome to you, Rosa, again. It's a pleasure to have you join us today, and over to you.
Thank you so much. What I'm gonna first do is I'm gonna try to share my screen with you. Let's see. You should see now my screen. Is that okay?
Yes, Rosa, we can see your screen.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you for inviting you and Habitat to join this initiative. What I would like to do today is just to introduce you some ideas of what are we talking about cities, or what is this movement that is like creating a lot of interest around urbanization. So the thing is that we know that nowadays we live in an urban world. So what does it mean? It means that globally, more than half of the population is living in cities. But I mean, and this is a figure that perhaps you already know, because I mean, it has been very well spread from 2007, that it was the moment that it changed. But the thing is that the important thing here is that this growth in terms of population living in urban areas will be mostly in regions that we know that are in the developing world. So this means that the urban expansion, so the ways in which cities will expand, will happen mostly in Africa or Southeastern Asia. And if we don't plan this extension of cities in a proper way, we can see that unplanned human settlements can grow more and more. So we have nowadays a little bit less than 1 billion people living in slums everywhere. So there's a big challenge here in understanding that if population is growing in cities, and especially in developing world, it has to be really a planning and a vision on how we see these cities for the future. So as I was saying, this is a map of the world. So the issue is that by 2050, you can see that mostly the entire wall is dark blue. And this means that by 2050, the figure that is always repeated on everything is like that 70% will be living in these urban areas, looking for opportunities and looking for what other places cannot provide. I like to just to have a really mention of what's the situation in India, because perhaps you can think that, okay, this is not really what is happening in India, this global picture. The thing is that India is one of the few countries nowadays that most of the population is not still living in cities, but the tendency is that this will change in the future. So if we have a society in which around 1/4 is living in informal settlements, we need to see what are the challenges for these years to come, because I think that, and that's that really work that we do, that we will see unprecedented challenges here in this growing of cities. So in terms of India, just giving you like some interesting figures. I mean, it's true that right now most of the people are not still living in very populated areas, but we'll see that when we'll arrive around 2040, so in 20 years more or less, we'll see like this shift of change. So the thing is, and that's the idea that we are always providing, cities are very diverse. So we cannot find a pattern of a good city, because this doesn't exist. A city is a creation of human. So it means that it's an evolution, it's a continuous work. And cities has like a lot of history and have a lot of culture itself. So it means that there's not a good model of a city in that sense. But what we know is that there's good urbanization and bad urbanization. And what we know for sure is that for having good urbanization, we need planning, we need thinking, we need innovation in that sense. So good urbanization or bad urbanization is what we like to talk and classify. And the thing is that good and bad have different consequences. And the consequences that we are having in good urbanization or bad urbanization means the way we live, the way in which people can have access to housing, or people can have access to public spaces, or people can have access to transportation opportunities in the work area. So it means that vision, planning, and consensus can create good urbanization. So consequently can create better life for people. So having said that, this revolution in terms of where people is living in terms of population, why cities matter? So because at the end, we know that they occupy just 3% of the Earth's land. But the thing is that, okay, they're having a lot of impact in issues that are like the top of the agenda in terms of global challenges. So we know that, for instance, if they apply for 60-70% of energy consumption, so climate emergency is pretty much related to what will be happening in cities. So if we don't have a very good relation in between the urban areas and the rural areas, and this territorial approach is not very well addressed, food security is one of the things that will have a lot of instabilities. So it means that energy consumption, access to basic services, social inequalities, right to housing, health, economic prosperity. So all the issues that are part of this global developing agenda are happening and are having a very close impact of what cities do or not do. So there was a moment in this history of international agreements and international multilateral consensus that this fact that urbanization and good urbanization was having an important role in sustainable development was really a thing that it get the consensus. So it was in 2012 when the former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon stated that the battle for global sustainable development will be won or lost in cities. So from that point, that it was the process in which the Sustainable Development Goals were created, and it was the moment in which the Agenda 2030 was being delivered. Cities and urbanization took an important role on what was the catalyst of all the global challenges that were happening around sustainable development. And that's why it was created. And if you are familiar with the SDGs and you are working SDGs in your daily work, you will notice that there's a specific SDG, the number 11, that is focused in cities, in sustainable cities and communities. So it was the global recognition from that point that what will happen in these places that are having a very high impact in terms of environmental issues, a very high impact in social life, a very high impact in economic prosperity, it will happen in these spots that we call cities. It was that moment also that we started the work of a deliberation of a new paradigm of how we understand the cities. It was called the New Urban Agenda. The New Urban Agenda was a follow-up of the SDGs, of the Agenda 2030, but pretty much focused on the way that we understand that cities should be managed and planned. So it means that, as I was saying, there's not a good city or a bad city, but there's a process in which we can improve the way in which we create or in which we manage these cities. And that's the point that we say that it's important. So if we really find the value of this process and the value of creating good urbanization. I'm just leaving here like the website if you want to find out more or you want to find out the text, because it's always worth reading to see what are the main concepts in terms of cities and urbanization that all member states of the United Nations agreed for the next years. So that's the work we do at UN Habitat. UN Habitat is a United Nations agency. It's a program that is focused and dedicated to human settlements. Started with an important role in terms of how to access to housing, so under the right to housing, but in the history of the years, this mission changed to what is the role that we can have among the communities and understanding communities among human settlements in urban areas. So we promote and we work for the development of socially and environmental sustainable cities and towns, but basically understanding towns as communities, as how we manage and how we organize ourselves as communities of people. Okay, so we know that there's a huge trend in terms of urbanization, but what is the other trend that we know in this current world? So this is that having youth as agents of change, and why that? Why that? And what we have seen in the last years, especially in the last 5 years. So the thing is that we know that now we are in a moment that never before we had like more young people living in this planet. So there's like 1.3 billion young people aged from 15 to 24. So as a very big group of this demographic reality. But the thing is that most of that people, almost 85% of that people, is living in developing countries. So as I was saying, rapid urbanization will be happening in developing countries. Young people is mostly located in developing countries. So if you merge these two great trends for the next years, it's very clear that we require a reformulation of the contract that we are having between young people and our societies. So if we don't success in giving that space to young people in our societies, which is the majority of the population and living in a very flow and changeable world, we don't succeed. We are not going to succeed. So there's a change of mind here. And the change of mind is that children and youth are not only beneficiaries, are not only the ones that have to receive the results of our thinking. Children and youth are agents of change and must be agents of change. So in the way that we can integrate and we can give a role to youth people in changing the cities of tomorrow, it means that we are working towards making them more safe, inclusive, resilient. So it means at the end of achieving the goals that we all have agreed in the Sustainable Development Goals or in the Agenda 2030. So understanding that they are not only here for receiving what is done, they are here to act. We will start changing the programs and the way we see our world. So how we work on that, because I'm saying that, but it's not really easy to change that, even in an organization like ours that are mostly focused on hierarchy structure, in the terms that being a multilateral organization, we know that we have the decisions of member states. So it means that we have decisions from national governments. It means that providing a voice to children and youth sometimes it's a way that we need to fight because it's not really within the organization itself. So the work that we have started doing is like opening a lot of windows that allowed not only to see the voice of the youth and children, but to really have their inputs to create our programs and to move forward of what we do in the future. One of the great initiatives that we have developed in the last years is how we integrate children and youth in participatory planning. So it means how integrate them in the creation of the city, in thinking how the cities needs to be, as I was saying, extended, or how we wanna rebuild a city center, or how we need to change a public space, because at the end, this is, the group that we know that know more about a neighborhood are the ones that live there. And the ones that live there mostly is these young people that spend a lot of time in these public spaces. And we know that cities created by and for children, for instance, means that our cities that are pretty much friendly for everyone, for all vulnerable groups, even for the ones that are more senior, So one of the groups that we created and the programs that we created was to use computer games to integrate urban planning. So with the support of some private sector as Minecraft, we created this project that is block by block, in which we can see the real world and the computer game world, and then it can create their own cities from that point. So we are seeing like different ways in which we can engage with their tools that they can understand, and then they can be motivated for doing a job that is for the community. There's other things and initiatives that we have done. That, for instance, here we were creating, and this was and this is a program that we have developed every World Cities Day. That is how we are adding the children voices in creating these cities. So here you can see like many children like creating and planning a city with cartoons and different crafts that they were having. But the important thing here is that we were working with an international organization that is UCLG, that is the main organization in terms of local governments. So all the inputs that we were receiving were directly connected to local governments. So at the end, it's not only what do we do to empower our children, is how we raise that voice to decision makers. So that's the important links that sometimes we miss. So it's not just creating programs that people as children can participate, it's how make the decisions or how make the inputs real and having an impact in decision making. Here on the other one, we were having like some interviews, because this is a group of ambassadors of climate change, that what we were doing here is that they were not the ones interviewing, they were the interviews, and they were having like well, some great answers or some great new visions in the way that we were facing climate change in cities. We launched a campaign some years ago called I'm a City Changer. And basically what we were looking at that point is how we can create community activities with local people. So in the sense that how we can create action in neighborhoods that then can have a global impact and they can be connected. So at the end, connecting different neighborhoods all over the world with similarities in the sense in terms of challenges, and connecting these young people all over the world in creating the solutions and making the solutions happen. So really having an impact and action on that was giving us like the success, and for them to see that it's possible to change things and it's possible to have an impact of what is happening in your territorial or area or in your city area. We use art as well. For instance, I mean, we had, there's a great challenge nowadays in how we communicate and how we raise awareness around COVID-19 pandemic. So one of the ways to get in informal settlements or to get in communities that sometimes it's difficult for them to get proper information from standard channels, we were collaborating with a group of young people that were related to ours. And it was a way to create new programs in which they were feeling involved in the COVID-19 response, but also they were like giving a space for the art and for the work that they were doing and showing and feeling empowered in the work that sometimes was not really highlighted. Sports is another line that we like always to explore, because through sports we have seen that there is a way of really integrate diversity, and is a way and is a very good opportunity for programs related to social inclusion. So sports has been one of the main, I would say, one of the main pillars that we are having in terms of creating these networks of youth, of young people, because at the end what you are providing is to have this family together that have a similar goal that you are having, and giving other opportunities and giving other references that are not only the ones that you can have at home or with your own family. And above top of all of this, above all, I mean, our our understanding of how we engage with children and youth, it's pretty much focused on how we create understanding, or how we create knowledge of this global perspective. So education, training, capacity building, everything that is like related to that gives us not only the impact of what is happening now, but also give like the impact for the following years. We created, for instance, an academy, the Urban Journalism Academy, that basically what was providing was the knowledge in terms of urbanization to young journalists. And why that? Because if I was explaining to you that we have this global trend, there is rapid urbanization, and it means that the understanding of how we plan the cities for the future and the actions that we are doing now will have an impact in the future. We need young people that understand what does it mean, and understanding that means that they need the knowledge and the understanding of what a city extension means, or what is the understanding of a proper public space, or why we need to allocate mixed user centers in cities to create and to have like more dynamic economies and to create better city for people. So there are like a lot of concepts that really needs the explanation and knowledge to be able to explain. So anything related to raising awareness and to be like this broadcaster and a spokesperson and ambassadors for the rest are a good initiative that provides us the actions for the next years. And saying that because at the end, we know that we are in this decade of action. So our programs are now pretty much focused on implementation and action. We have seen that now till 2030, if we don't start having an impact at local level, so it means in the way that we live, it will be very difficult to reach global goals. So what we do at the very local level, it means our neighborhood, it means our places that are mostly lived by our community. It will be very difficult to reach these big goals that are having an impact worldwide. So that's why any program that we are like implementing right now is always having a very focused approach in terms of action. And well, having said all of that, if you are more interested in knowing what we do, or you are more interested in the topic itself and understanding a little bit more about how cities or how urbanization is seen or should be tackled, I really recommend you that tomorrow you connect to or you participate in the celebration of the World Cities Day. Tomorrow it will be launched a new World Cities report. That this is the flagship publication of UN Habitat. That at the end is like giving the most important highlights in the sense and of how cities are being planned and managed in the last years. And of course, if you don't have time to connect, I invite you to just search for the report, because it will be open for everyone and accessible for everyone to check and to use, also to use for what you are doing. I also invite you to have a look to our hub of resilience. That this was created like 5 years ago, and we mostly work with cities, with local governments in building resilience, because I think that this is one of the concepts, resiliency, that that is having more impact and will be having more impact in the years that are coming. And what I'm saying that because I mean, of course, we are seeing the preparedness of territories right now in terms of the impact of a pandemic, and this is very recent. But we know that another challenges will be coming, and especially related to climate change in the next years. So in the way that we understand how we prepare an area to have a response to all these impacts will be the way that we will succeed. So I really recommend you to have a look at that, to start being like familiar with this concept of urban resilience, because it's something that sometimes we don't see, the preparation and the planning, but it's the only one that is having an impact in the way that we see our responses to any crisis that is coming. And thank you. That's I don't know if it has been a little bit long, but I think that now we have like some time for questions and answers, and for anything else you have here my contact. Thank you very much. Let me see, because I would leave. Great.
Thank you so much, Rosa. The work that you're doing as part of UN Habitat is truly inspiring, and it was a lot of you took us through it in extensive detail. It was very, very insightful and helpful to know. Thank you so much. And with that, we'd like to open up the virtual floor for question and answers for our panelists, and of course, any discussion points that anybody in the attendees would like to bring up. We can go about it in two ways. There is an Q&A option at the bottom of your screens. You could either write down your questions here, or you will also have an option to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, I could promote you to the panelist, and we could have an open discussion with the panelists here itself. And you'll be able to turn on your video or audio, whichever you prefer to. All right, so to start off with, we have one question in the Q&A which says, can you tell us a few cities that are already implementing these points that you highlighted?
Rosa, that could be about...
I guess that this is for me, right?
Yes. Apologies,
Okay.
I missed mentioning that.
No, what do we have, or what we have in our radar? As I was saying, there's not a manual or something that really can say this city is like following our steps that we consider right, because there's no right or right, in that sense. But what is important here is that, yes, there's a lot of cities, and there's a network of cities that what they are doing is that they are following the new urban agenda for their planning and for their creation of policies. And in that sense, there are like so many cities that are localizing the new urban agenda for their plans all over the world. I mean, I could say, for instance, I don't know, in Latin America, there are cities like Quito, there are cities in Colombia, that are very strong following the new urban agenda. In Argentina, in Africa, we have been working with Maputo, with Dakar in creating resilience in that sense. So what I want to say is that in so many cities, there are the willingness in following these agendas, and they are working in really putting that in terms of policies, because it's the only way that that decision making can be implemented.
All right, thank you, Rosa. Just a reminder, audience, please feel free to raise your hands. We'll be glad to have an open discussion on certain points that you'd like to bring up. On that note, we have another question, which is, what is the power of Gen Z in this coalition? How can Gen Z be the change makers? At least it's not specified who this is to, so any of the panelists, please feel free to take up the question.
I think I'll begin, and probably Rosa can add on, because they're also working with youth across the world. One of the things that I think we've noticed and experienced over the last 10 years, especially working with Gen Z, is that there is a certain difference to this generation in terms of their activism and their awareness about global issues, and their consciousness about wanting to bring about change in the world. So from that perspective, I think more than anything else, I think it is upon us to ensure that they are participants in this process of building our future, because I think there is that energy that needs to be really channelized, and in a lot of ways, I think they're better equipped than we are, and we've seen that with so many cases of innovative solutions that Gen Z that we have been working with have been coming up with. I mean, we don't have the neighborhood coalitions in place yet, but we've had students who've addressed so many challenges. Like, I can take the example of this girl Riya Kulkarni, who looked at when the Maharashtra plastic ban happened. Looked at setting up a entire organization that worked on providing cloth bags to the traders so that they are not inconvenienced. There is this case of a student from Delhi who identified that one of the causes of pollution was the logs that were burnt for people keeping themselves warm, and came up with this innovative idea of using wax and I think sawdust to create this these things to keep themselves warm without polluting. So I think Gen Z are trying their best to be part of this change, and I think we can see their activism in things like the climate strikes. I think it's upon us to channelize that towards more constructive action, and that is the purpose of these coalitions. They can be carriers of information into families. They can be actual actors in terms of the action that they take, and yeah, they can continue to do this throughout their life beyond this as well.
Absolutely. Rosa, would you like to add anything to that?
I just want to highlight this this thing that I think that is very important. That I mean, Gen Z is a different way of how we understand the world. They see the world in a way that there is a lot of potential and opportunities for them to change. And I think that we need to understand that this is a great potential. And it's a generation that has seen the world in a way that they don't like, so they have understood that they can change that, and this is very powerful.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. We have a couple of questions that have come in. The first one is for you, Rosa. It says, I know this shouldn't be the only motive, but would like to know if there is good prospects for kids getting jobs in this sphere. How do we work with the UN?
For kids getting jobs in the sphere of UN, of United Nations, it means?
Yes.
I guess.
It specifically
Okay.
says
well, for
UN, yes.
So the entry point, I guess, to work with the UN, I guess, that is. So there are some programs, well, really focused on youth, in which facilitate the entry point for young people of different nationalities to the UN. These are like long processes in which I mean, in which it requires a lot of some exams and everything. But yes, there are like specific projects for young people to get in the system.
All right, okay, thank you. We have a question for Aditya. It says, how can a city to classroom develop in an idea of eco-friendly space? Can you give us some tips on this? We have this question from Ms. Shalini Nair.
I wouldn't get into giving tips as such, but I think some of the thoughts that were shared earlier as well, in terms of in terms of addressing some of the sustainability issues that exist in our in our immediate environments, right? So one of the first places for schools to start could be in the neighborhood of the schools itself, and addressing some of the environmental challenges that exist there. The second thing could also be around looking at the school ecosystem itself. I think we spoke earlier about the idea of school as a microcosm of a smart city. So what can we do to bring an eco-friendly element into our schools, and how can that be driven by students? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but yeah, I would say that there are lots of ways of doing it, but a couple of these would be to look at the neighborhood of the city, of the school, and see how the immediate environment can be changed. Yeah.
Thank you, Adya. We have a very interesting question here stating a paradox most of us are aware of, which is that cities are epicenters for growth and change. So, how can we possibly coexist with sustainability and growth?
Yeah, that's the key question. That's the thing. That's why I really recommend to read the New Urban Agenda, because it's about that. We know and we know that that the model that we are having right now, if is following growing in that sense, is not sustainable. Is going to fail. So the thing is that we need to change the model. We need a new urban paradigm, and that is really the change of understanding. That of course we need to create. One example, for instance, very easy. One of the mantras of the New Urban Agenda is that we cannot have cities without a territorial balance. It means that we need to put a focus of secondary cities. It means that we cannot concentrate all people that want to look for new opportunities to the same urban area, because if we have that, we have mega cities, and these mega cities are not able to have and to control that they can implement basic services for all, for saying that. So a territorial approach and giving like more support to secondary cities to be like other centers of production is one of the strategies in that sense. So there are like many strategies in that sense, that what it makes is like to change a little bit the model of urbanization that we are having right now.
Thank you, Rosa. And for the benefit of our participants, we'll be sure to share these references with you post the session as well, so you all can take a look at it based on your interest. We have a couple of more questions. Another interesting one, and this is something that, as someone who's really moved around cities, I've often heard this, which is a lot of those living in cities feel disconnected from them, and in most cases, quote unquote, can't wait to leave. So, besides the love for its food and culture and the resentment for its negative features, how do we even spark that sense of ownership?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, very interesting. And from another approach, for instance, now in some developed countries, I would say Europe or even the US, what we are seeing is that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, what has provoked is that people want to leave the city because they want to come back to the countryside and have a different kind of life. So the only way of getting this sense of ownership is that providing a good quality of life to people that are living in a city. Because the worst situation of everything is that having people that have to live in urban areas, because it's the only way that they can have some gain, some work, but they don't like to live there. And if they don't like to live there, it's because they don't have a good quality of life. So that's the thing that needs to change. It's always how we are providing the basic services to people and the community that make people feel happy to live in the place they live.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rosa, for shedding light on that. Yes, Aditya, sorry.
I think I hadn't understood the question earlier, right? So I just wanted to add a few things here to Shalini, who asked a question about certain ideas around city to classroom. I think there are one way to look at it is to look at the different elements of a school that are and audit them and understand where is it that there is a there's a things lacking on the sustainability index or the eco-friendly index, and see how the school can address them. For example, I think one of the areas where a lot of schools struggle right now in terms of looking at the city itself is mobility, right? When you pass by a school at the time when school is starting or the ending, then you can feel the pollution because of the various ways in which schools students are coming into schools. I've had a conversation in the past with the Metro Rail Corporation in one of our cities, and they were very, very keen to look at how schools can start using the metro, because it solves a problem that the metro has, which is that they don't have non-peak hour traffic, and schools function in non-peak hours, right? 7 a.m. and 7, 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. So that's one example of something that the school can look at. How can you address how children are coming to the school? Another one could be, what is the kind of consumption that is happening within the school in terms of food, and can that food not come from beyond the city limits, or even better, if that school can be grown in the city, right? So these are a couple of things that I just thought I'll quickly share. But I think by the end of the Cities of Tomorrow challenge that we have, I think the children are going to come up with 100 such ideas, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking also in some initiatives that I've seen in different cities, in terms of how you involve children in the things that are happening in the city. For instance, there's a nice initiative here in Barcelona in which children of a school is the one in charge of urban farms. So we have like different parks in the city, and the ones in charge of taking care of these urban farms are the children. There's another initiative, this one with, of course, with the support of the municipality, because it requires the urbanization of the area. But what they have created is they call it something like Safe School project. It means that all the area around the school is free of cars, because they were like some accidents and some issues related to that. So this they are trying to give like some pedestrian and public space for children, at least at the area that has an impact with the school. So there are like some initiatives that sometimes it's nice to see what is happening all over the world, and to understand what are the capacities that you are having and what you are able to implement or to innovate. But there are like many initiatives in that sense that are like growing and popping up.
Thank you, Rosa and Aditya, for sharing your views on this. In the interest of time, we would move on to the last segment of this event, which is the launch of the Cities of Tomorrow. We have Prakriti with us. Over to you, Prakriti.
Right. Thank you, Aparna. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you once again for joining us this evening. Thank you, Rosa and Aditya, for your insights, and I'll hope to culminate all of that into this next segment. It is my pleasure to introduce for the first time our newest initiative called the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, or COT, as we like to call it in our abbreviation-loving organization. Cities of Tomorrow Challenge is a future cities-based youth entrepreneurship challenge, and is relevant for any student who would like to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, to practically understand the challenges of urbanization and how to address those problems and make future-ready and sustainable solutions. So when I refer to the term students, like Aditya has mentioned and Aparna has mentioned earlier, we refer to the children of this generation who are popularly monikered as Gen Z, or as we like to call them, Gen S, a generation of solvers. It's a generation that knows how to have a mind of its own, whose lives are shaped by technology and massive amounts of information at their fingertips. We've always believed that this 2.5 billion strong Generation Z, with the impact that it has to make positive action, can translate into a ripple effect into society by impacting 2.5 billion families and communities and the way they think and behave. But how or even why does this generation need to be concerned about future cities? I'm sure all of you who have ever interacted with a strong-willed Gen Z at any point will agree that certain decisions in your life are impacted by them, be it their suggestions on which smartphone to buy or which global trend to catch on to. One very famous Gen Z, which we all know about, is Greta Thunberg, the Gen Z who made world leaders sit up and take notice about the climate crisis. Next slide, please. Right. So we think that when Gen Z has this power to impact, it is evident that they should play an increasingly important role in shaping of their immediate ecosystems, all of which are a part of a city. So cities now should no longer be shaped for them, but by them. The future of work, research has shown, will be in areas of sustainability largely. There are already areas where the surface has just been scratched, and the momentum and the pace in which there is going to be a plethora of opportunities available in sustainability is going to be fast and unprecedented. So some of the areas that the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge addresses are the 8 pillars of what make a smart city, and all of which come into the domain of future cities, smart cities, sustainable cities. So as you see on your screen, we have the 8 pillars of smart cities, all of which open up wide domains for future opportunities, for career building, irrespective of the kind of profession students get into. All of them require a certain amount of innovative mindset to move away from what has been the norm so far and move into what can be a very future, innovative, sustainable way of living. Next slide, please. So we have brought together the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge for you. This is the learning journey that the students undergo. It includes 3 large stages or levels that students have to go through. The Mad Lab, or like I told you, we love our abbreviations. The Mad Lab, which is the Movers and Doers Lab, the Future Cities Bootcamp, and the Entrepreneurship Summit. One of the domains that I will focus on largely in this stage is the Movers and Doers Lab. Next slide, please. Because this is one of the largest and most widely curated stages of this particular challenge. It includes a wide plethora of learning elements for the students. It's a very comprehensive journey and will definitely be the longest for them. So it includes, as you can see, there are 3 large modules under the Movers and Doers Lab. One is an introduction to the Sustainable Cities module, where it has over 120 short modules and courses available, and a project planning module, which has 6 months of unlimited access to what we call as the FutureSake Express, a sustainable habitats course by Worldview, which is curated in collaboration with leaders and industry leaders from all over the world. And this is a part of our digital learning hub. So students get access to this. It is a self-exploration, self-paced learning stage where students can choose from all of these various courses and learn about the various pillars of what make a smart city. Then, of course, we have the live wire and mentorship. Now, this is where the action kind of begins. It is where students get to interact with people. They get access to over 30 live interactions with our partners, who I will be speaking about later, and workshops, challenges, talent showcases, etc. And finally, it all culminates in this particular stage to the Solvers Unwind Week. It's an unofficial graduation of sorts, where everyone who has completed the Movers and Doers Lab stage get to sort of reflect, think back, and enjoy the learnings of Mad Lab, and also celebrate all of those who move on to the next stage of the boot camp or of the Entrepreneur Summit. Now, our learning journey, that we have wanted to create through the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, and the learning that we hope to provide to the students, require the best of the best to be engaged in each domain. And we are proud to announce our partnership with these illustrious organizations who are a part of the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, leaders and experts of their domains, and some of the biggest names in the industry. Some of our partners, in fact, are present here on this session, and I want to thank them for joining us today and for this initiative. UN Habitat, of course. We also have representatives from Scrap, from Eunice Environment Hub, We Grow, Green Tech, Biome, and Urban Activists. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward and are very excited to take forward this initiative with you. Our partners will be mentors and tutors for the participants across different stages, encouraging them to do their best and allowing them to create and innovate through ideation, trial and error, all the while enjoying the process of learning. With that, on behalf of our esteemed partners and Worldview Education, it is my pleasure to invite your schools to participate in the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge. Registrations are now open, and we look forward to hosting a delegation representing your school and their city. So thank you so much for listening to me. We have a short video playing next, which will briefly explain the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have about this.
It is said that the 21st century will be a century of cities. Advances in sustainable development, technology and innovation are changing the way we live. The people, youth, civil society organizations, everyone has come together and seized the opportunities for growth and change. All so that our cities can be greener, cleaner, safer and smarter. Did you know? Over 50,000 crores have been allotted for developing India's first 20 smart cities. This will create new jobs, businesses, and so many opportunities for future generations. So if you want to make a change, then we are looking for you. The Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, starting November 2020, bringing India's most innovative young minds together for an immersive and fun experience and making them the champions of change. One platform, one community, one mission to find a sustainable and smart way forward. Build your crew and come show the world how your city can be made future-driven, smart and sustainable. Each team will begin by choosing one of the 8 pillars of a smart and sustainable city. Spark your ideas and prototype your project in creative and innovative ways. Stage 1 ends with community-wide fun icebreaker and team-building activities, where we will celebrate every great design to find the best of the best. The remaining participants then have the opportunity to get behind and support the leading teams to the very end. The chosen ideas and prototypes will take shape in the second stage of the challenge, where teams will meet their mentors and industry leaders whose expertise and skills will help them pass the next round of eliminations. The Entrepreneurship Summit is the third and final stage of the challenge. Here, teams will develop leadership skills and an entrepreneurial attitude that is crucial for driving project implementation to the very end. Why should you join us? To solve global challenges, to contribute to societal progress, to become a powerful young entrepreneur, to join a fun, lively, electric community of like-minded people, to inspire the next generation of problem solvers, to network with and make personal mentors of global experts, to gain recognition from industry leaders, to live a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The final winning team will receive funding and work closely with industry leaders and mentors to implement their prototypes and ideas into real, working solutions in their own cities. The Earth doesn't need one perfect act of kindness. It needs 7.7 billion imperfect ones. Have you got yours yet?
Yes. So with that, we present once again the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge. I hope that that explainer video and everything that I said explained what the initiative is about. I think it also addresses a couple of the questions that we had earlier with regards to how to make students take ownership of their own cities beyond just the food and culture, and also how there can be possible idea generations to make your schools and your cities into your classrooms. So with that, I end the Cities of Tomorrow initiative launch, and back to your host, Aparna. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you so much, Prakriti. Thank you to all our panelists today. Thank you, Rosa and the UN Habitat, and of course, all the partners that are also supporting the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge, and some of who are present here with us today. And thank you everybody who's taken the time to attend this session. And of course, apologies for the slight extension. So thank you for everybody who stuck around till the end. We hope you've drawn a lot from this engagement. And we also hope that the Cities of Tomorrow Challenge will see a lot of you participate in the challenge itself. So thank you once again. Have a great day and a great evening based on where you're joining us from. Signing off from here. Bye-bye.